anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated, yes,
to our favorite shows.
Oh, my circuits!
Everybody loves Hippo
Scary Dog!
Dancing at Blurnsville.
Futurama.
Good evening. You are listening to a Radulich and Broadcasting premiere podcast TV party tonight. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight we are discussing his Dark Materials series, not seasons, series 2, which debuted in England on November 8th, and then the following week, November 16th, in the U.S. It concluded in England on December 20th, and in the U.S. on December 28th, for a total of 7 episodes. This season was based on the second book of the Golden Compass series, The Subtle Knife. Joining me tonight to discuss the series and what she thought about it, Miss Alexis Hejna of Honeysuckle Rose Creations. How do you do, madam?
Third time this week you got me here.
Yeah. And what a week it's been, huh?
Oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to pushing all this past us and going to watch Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Hail Satan!
Yes, indeed. Hail Satan. Speaking of Satan, so the last time we talked about this, we also did the graphic novel of the first book, and I think we talked about it at the time. Refresh my memory, refresh the memory of those who listen to the podcast. How familiar are you with the YA novels?
Well, firstly, I will remind you that graphic novel that we reviewed is one of the few comic books I purchased for the show, and I have since donated to charity because I didn't want it in my collection. The artwork was not bad, but it's clear that comic book or graphic novel, whatever, was rushed out to tie into the YA novel. It had the pacing was horrible. Planning of the actual panels was horrible. There was no thought or creativity gone into the storytelling aspect. It was just, okay, now a character says this, now a character says this. It was just so blasé and boring, and I really didn't like it. I did read The Golden Compass some time ago. I have all 3 books up on my library, but I have not actually... I read through, I think, the first half of The Subtle Knife, and I don't know, something happened, life happened, book got put down, I walked away. I do remember being a little, not put off, but a little caught off guard with how bold the second book was coming out as. For those who are not aware, Phil Pullman is an atheist, and the entire series is essentially an analogy of going against the church and against God. And he does not pull any punches with his writing. Now, the TV series that we're looking at has done I would say a fairly decent job of replacing some wording and making it so more that this is less an attack on God or divinity or whatever, and more of an attack on organized religion and how man has corrupted said organized religion. I felt I was a little worried because with the movie that came out a while back with Nicole Kidman and Daniel Craig, where they adapted the first book, they tried so hard to tiptoe around it and avoid any kind of dialogue that would be seen as too anti-church, because when this book came out, oh my God, there was a huge controversy. So many, very devout theological parents were furious their kids were reading this. But I'm glad that they managed to find a way to not totally shy away from it, but not make it over the head atheism. For the record, I'm a deist, so I have nothing against atheists, but I can understand not wanting to read a book where somebody just basically screams in your face, God sucks.
Yeah, not that I want to get into my own stuff, but just so people know where I'm coming from. I tend to say, I hate this phrase, but because for a lot of reasons, but I don't know how else to say it. I'm basically like spiritual. I'm sure there's something out there. I don't know what. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. don't believe necessarily. I don't necessarily believe in a being that affects your life in any way. I'm sure there's something out there. I don't know what it is. I don't particularly care at this point. I don't find organized religion to be helpful in my life. I respect that it is helpful in other people's lives, which makes me, which is a bone of contention between me and my father, who not only has no use for organized religion, but thinks it's the greatest trick the devil ever played. So there's that.
I have nothing against organized religion as a whole. I was raised Episcopalian, and my parents are both still, well, they're active in the church to the point that you can be active in a church in this day and age of COVID and such. There is online streaming
services.
Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. On Sundays, which they still participate in. And when they were able to go to the church, they were both very heavily involved. My mom sings in the choir. My father plays guitar for the choir. It's a very big part of their life, and I have often said if that's what brings them their happiness and makes them feel at peace, good for them.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think where the church, where any kind of organized religion serves its greatest purpose is providing a cultural and social structure for people to feel a sense of belonging, which is the point that I've tried to make to my dad, and he doesn't hear that part. He's very caught up in. In the organized religion, there's a God that tells you to do a thing, and it makes you hate people that won't do the thing. And it's like, boy, is it bigger than all of that. But I'm not here to talk about my dad and his atheism and his hatred of organized religion. The point being that I respect people who are involved in organized religion. I respect religion in and of itself. And the way people make use of it when it does not cause harm to other people.
Exactly.
So yes, but the series, I think the series does a good job of making that one of the central themes. There's especially throughout season 2, season 1 was, hey, there's this dust and there's the possibility of alternative dimensions, and it's kind of like the putting together of the Bible, the early development of the Christian religion and the Catholic Church. It was, we don't want to talk about this we're going to bury, the Gospels of Mary, the Gospels of Judas, which have since been found and printed, and a lot of the stuff that didn't make the cut into the Bible has been published and talked about and whatever else, but at the time was kind of buried and like, we're not going to deal with any of this stuff. There's a lot of that going on in the first season of His Dark Materials. The second season, now, there's this big event, right? What's his nuts there? Split the atom and went into another universe.
Lord Asriel, a.k.a. we could only afford James McAvoy for one scene this time. One scene.
Yeah. James McAvoy kills the poor kid and is able to open up a doorway into a parallel universe, to which Lyra follows him through. Will, on the opposite side from our world, presumably, goes into the split in the universe, and both him and Lyra end up in this alternative place where they meet and go on this adventure. And now that's happened, and the church is like, well, how do we hide this from the people? This is a direct challenge to everything that we're teaching. And this is a very familiar thing, I think, throughout organized religious history of, we say this exists, this does not exist, these are good, this is bad, and then a thing happens, and they're like, well, shit. This is in direct contrast to everything we're teaching. How do we deal with it? And
where they're not bishops, they're just higher ups with the magisterium are explaining to the cardinal what has happened, and he's screaming, heresy, heresy, and they're like, it happened.
Yeah, there's a fucking hole in the universe. You can't.
You can call it heresy until you're blue in the face. It doesn't change. There's a hole.
Right. We're beyond the point of you don't look behind the curtain. There's no man behind there. Focus on the giant flaming head. We're past that now.
Yeah.
The curtain has been pulled back. The diminutive Jewish man is standing there behind the control panel. We have to deal with this. So that's a lot, and so now that they have, they're also in conflict with the witches. Forgive my memory on this in the first season, but the witches were mostly staying out of the way of the church staying out of the way of the witches, and now they're in conflict with one another, but I'm not entirely sure I remember why exactly the church is going after the witches.
Trying to remember exactly. I think that they were never really, on that good of terms before. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to look. I know that the witches had taken the side of the Egyptians to help save the children.
That might have been the inciting incident then. Mm-hmm. It was once they attacked the church and what was going on up in the north and saving the children, they were then brought to the attention of the church, and the church says, well, we're not going to have witches, that's for certain. And then so early on in this season, and this was quite horrific, they bombed wherever it is that the witches were existing at the time, and so the witches were like, well, we're not going to stand for this.
Well, it also happens that Mrs. Coulter has taken a witch and has captured her and is torturing her. And I'm just going to say the way she's torturing her is freaky as hell. The witches fly in this universe, and I thought actually this was a really clever idea, is that they always talk about a witch having a cloud pine with her. Now, in the early 2000s film that came out, that was seen as them just holding onto a tree branch. They always had a tree branch with them, and they flew with it, kind of like a little makeshift broom. In this one, the cloud pine are like vines that are under the witch's skin. So they're always with them. And it looks freaky as hell when you just look at it from the side. It looks like they've just got massive varicose veins or something crawling up their arms and their backs. So Mrs. Coulter gets a set of tweezers, and she starts yanking the cloud pine out of the captured witch, trying to get her to talk about what the whole deal is with Lyra, to which the witch basically calls out to her sisters and says, kill me because I can't take this anymore. The witch queen, Ruta Scotty, I'm going to massacre a lot of these pronunciations, and I'm sorry. She shows up, kills her in mercy, then she kills some of the submarine crew, and she wounds the cardinal who's on the ship as well. Basically saying, oh, you torturing one of my sisters? Fuck you! Boom, boom, boom. Shit.
So that's a lot of this season. It's the war between the church and the war between the church and the witches. That's one thing that's happening. Another thing that's happening is, and this is sort of the main thrust of it, you have Lyra and you have Will. They meet. They're in this abandoned city, and the first thing, and in the first couple episodes, it's kind of establishing their relationship, establishing them, not as a couple, like a romantic couple, but establishing them as sort of partners in crime. And so there's a lot of just kind of getting to know you. One of my criticisms of this, and it's not a poorly written show by any stretch of the imagination. It's well acted. It's a little slow. And I don't know how much of this is a reflection of, well, that's how the book goes or not, but it almost seems like there's an idea. We put some characters in a room together, and then we're not quite sure what to do with them next. Like, well, they're here now. Oh, boy, does this sound familiar. We're here. Well, now what? Olive Garden? I don't know what to do next, And, good, I got you there. But, and so you have, after a moment, you have Will who's in pursuit of the subtle knife, and it's a magic knife that can cut holes in space time and allow you to travel between alternative universes. And so he My God, I don't know how much of this was influenced by Lord of the Rings, but every time they said you were the knife bearer or something like that, I was like, you mean ring bearer, don't you? You want to say ring bearer. This is going to end with Will getting his fucking hand chopped off and a frog creature falling into lava.
Well, he already got 3 of the fingers chopped off, so he's halfway there.
Yeah, no shit, right? Yeah, I don't know.
When Terrence Stamp is the one telling you you're the knife bearer, you listen because it's Terrence fucking Stamp.
To your recollection, and you might know this, maybe you don't, but do you know if what's his name, Pullman, who wrote the Golden Compass and all that?
Philip Pullman.
Philip Pullman. Was he in fact influenced by Tolkien?
I'm not 100% certain, but as I quickly found from an interview with George R.R. Martin, majority of fantasy writers are influenced by Lord of the Rings, and they just don't freaking know it yet.
Okay.
What? Do you have any idea how hard it was for George R.R. Martin to finally admit about the character Sam and his influence? It's like, just cough it up, dude. We don't care that you got that from Lord of the Rings. We don't care. It's still a great character. We're happy with what you did, but freaking confess already.
Yeah, and we're fine.
Yeah.
You are allowed to borrow from other. God knows it happens in enough science fiction and science fantasy, Star Wars.
And Mark, I can't remember if it was Mark Twain or Groucho Marx, but one of them always said, if you're going to steal from the best.
It might have been, I believe that was Mark Twain. Anyway, so it takes a little bit of going before Will finally gets his mission, and it's to go get the subtle knife. Lyra is even more, like, wandering around in circles. Like, she basically went into the hole in space-time to go after her father, and then it's like she gets there and she's like, I haven't the faintest clue what I'm supposed to do next. I just know I'm in this abandoned city. There's weird girls around. They're talking about their parents being killed by ghosts. Oh, look, a charming black boy. Like, she's just kind of, like, just there. And there's a great scene, and I think it's episode 2 or 3, where after they've discovered that there's an Oxford in both of their worlds, so she goes to the Oxford in this one, and she meets the physics scientist who is looking into dark matter. And it's one of the great performances of this entire series. I really love this from Daphne. Daphne Keith, I believe her name is. Uh-huh. She's trying to explain to the scientist what dust is and why it matters and why she's in pursuit of this. Because at the end of the day, her father's pursuit of traveling between alternative universes resulted in the death of her friend. And she, as a character, doesn't quite know what to do. She just knows he shat not die in vain. So, at the very least, she should understand what in the hell her father was trying to accomplish, and what, if anything, can be done about it. And so she's trying to explain all of that to the scientist, and she's like, about a third of the way through, she was like, she realizes she sounds like a lunatic. And just goes, I'm explaining this all wrong. And sits down and looks like she's about to cry. And I was like, wow, just give the kid the Emmy already.
Yeah, well, it's hard because she goes to see... Well, first of all, she's taken aback because in her world, women are not allowed to, be scholars. So she walks in and there's Mary Malone, who is actually one of my favorite characters so far. I love just how down to earth. And she is not just book smart, but very street smart. I love that she's not just kind of sitting there going, oh, okay, what's going on? All right. No, she's able to figure out something's wrong here, and I'm not a total idiot, and I can pick up that I need to do something about it.
And I would like to applaud the showrunner and the casting director and the costumer for not making her look like Hollywood scientist. You know, dorky, glasses, fumbling about.
Jenny Slate in Venom.
I was thinking... What's her face from Wonder Woman? What's his face from Iron Man? Electro from Spider-Man. You know, the whole list everyone put up on Twitter after Wonder Woman that said, stop doing this.
Oh, yeah, that character. No, like I said, she's a very interesting character, but Lyra is told by the alethiometer, she said, go find the scholar, and whatever you do, don't lie to her. But Lyra is also very hard of a character to get into until, I'd say, the second half of this season, because the first half, first of all, she just watched her best friend die, and it was her father who literally dropped the blade. She's traumatized, and she is very upset about this, but it also gets a little annoying because she's very driven, and this is something we loved about her in the first season, but she's so driven now that she's running, and it's like, sweetie, you need to stop running and take a better understanding of where you are and what you're doing. In the second episode alone, she runs through a portal into what's world, and Will is yelling after her, slow down, and she won't, and she runs into a car and nearly gets her ass run over. And she's like, yeah, cars aren't that fast in my world, and then she just keeps on running. It's like, okay, sweetie, you can't keep doing this, and Will's trying to explain this to you, and it gets a little annoying, because she is a great character, but she's coming across as a little too, I'm not listening to anything else, this is all on me. And
she reminded me of Wonder Woman in the first movie, where Wonder Woman comes to the New World and she's just rambling on incessantly about Ares to people who don't know that Greek gods exist. She's in what is the modern world of the early 1900s, and she's just rambling like an insane person, and she's singularly focused on, there is a real geopolitical, including an assassination that started World War I, and no one's, and she's just like, never nuts to all that. It's all Ares' fault. And she's so singularly focused, and she sounds nuts. And that's what Lyra reminded me of. It's just like, take a step back and know where you are. Understand the setting you're in before you continue to sound like a lunatic.
Exactly. She keeps talking about dust, and again, she doesn't want Roger's death to have been in vain, but she needs to just understand you can't do things the way you were doing them in your world. You're in another world, and you need to take, just kind of figure out how to make things work here. I felt so sorry for Will running after her, and she's like, okay, I'll talk to her, and she runs, and he's like, what are you doing? It's because she's used to running everywhere.
Well, it is a Hobbit's journey, isn't it? The whole thing with the Hobbit is it's these innocent creatures who know nothing of the world and are so diminutive that coming out of their own, safety of the Shire is certain death, and nothing that any of them even wants to do. They are not struck by wanderlust in any way, and that's kind of what she reminds me of. She reminds me of Bilbo, who was raised in the safety of Oxford, and kind of, spoiled and a little entitled, and she's sort of thrusted into this journey, because Roger was kidnapped and then summarily executed. And so she went off to find him, and everything became about, I've got to save Roger. Now I have to avenge Roger. But she's this innocent who is being slowly but surely corrupted by the shittiness of the world she inhabits that she was protected from initially.
And like I said, it's just a little hard to root for her because she is so gung-ho on her mission. She's not willing to listen to anyone or anything. She constantly rambles on about dust to Will, and she's not even, it takes her forever to finally start listening to him about his attempts to find his father. She's just like, I'm going to find dust. And not to mention, there is a little bit of a condescending tone to her that when she first starts talking to Will about how he doesn't have a demon, and obviously, I mean, that's essentially like seeing someone doesn't have a soul.
Right.
I can understand it would freak him out a little bit, but the way she talks about dust to Will and demons to Will, it's very condescending.
It gets better in the second half for both of them. I think once Will starts on the mission to find the knife, then gets the knife, then starts using the knife, Will becomes a very interesting character.
Definitely.
I think once she loses the althiometer to, I can't remember the character's name, the black guy who spent the first season looking for Will. Who?
Boreal.
Once Boreal comes in possession of the althiometer, and now her mission is to get the damn thing back, and both of them have a sense of purpose. They have they have MacGuffins to chase, and missions to accomplish, the show picks up. But yeah, those first, I would say, 3 or 4 episodes just dragged.
Yeah, it isn't really until the 4th episode when we have the side quest, as you will, to get the knife from the tower and to defeat Tulio, I think his name is, who has stolen the knife and is essentially flailing the thing around because that's all that's going to protect him from the specters. Sweet Jesus, I'm having Dementor flashbacks from Harry Potter.
All right, how many influences are on this book? Harry Potter, The Lord of the Rings, Wonder Woman. I'm thinking Sabrina the Teenage Witch. What else you got? Let's talk about Miss Coulter in this season. So Miss Coulter, in the first season, you have the great episode, which is almost line for line out of the movie, which I assume is right out of the book, where Lyra is living with her, and things are going great until Lyra starts questioning things too much and becomes a bit pushy about Robert, at which point she's like, the monkey attacks, and it's a whole thing, and she finally gets out of there.
You mean
Huh?
You mean Roger, right? Not Robert?
Yeah, sorry, Roger. So, that's where we start to see, Miss Coulter as this really menacing figure, and then you will see her in greater detail later at the end of the episode, where they go to the rescue the kids from the north. And here's the thing. I love the way Miss Coulter was written, because she's not totally mustache twirly, she's not Maleficent. She cares for Lyra. Like, you don't give a shit about these other kids, but then these other kids were Gyptians. Who gives a shit, right? They're mongrel children. So she doesn't care if she kills them. But, this prized princess here, she truly loves. Like, I do absolutely get the sense that Miss Coulter loves Lyra and truly wants what she thinks is best for her. She's, just got that classic villain thing of, I believe I'm in the right, even though my right is, the morally wrong thing to be going on here. And so, she's kind of Darth Vader. Yeah, another reference. She's kind of Darth Vader. In the second season, she is singularly focused on finding Luke Skywalker. She's lost interest in the Empire. She's lost interest in the Rebellion. She's just, I only care about getting Lyra back and getting her out of this mess she's gotten herself into. And I kind of like that about her. But that menace is still there, and she is a truly subtly wicked villain. The shit she pulls on Boreal, where she ends up killing him. She's like, and it's a very, very pro-woman moment, isn't it? I don't need no man. What makes you think you're my equal? Pshaw. And fucking kills the guy. Like, how? All right. You're an asshole. Good job.
Yeah, Mrs. Coulter, there's a couple of episodes in this season where you just realize how truly terrifying she is.
Yeah.
So one of the things I had started to notice especially in the first series and as the second season was progressing, was that majority of the other characters, their demons, were such a more integral part of their lives. They talked to them, and they were, always seen, as having them as part of them. She was using hers, the golden monkey, more as a tool. And I also started to notice that a lot of the characters, they would talk to their demons. With the exception of background characters, I'm pretty sure Miss Coulter so far is the only one who you've seen the demon, and the demon doesn't talk at all. He is just purely communicating in animal sounds. And then we get that scene, which really did cement for me just how scary she is. We've established that if you touch or hurt another person's demon, they feel the pain. So to help Will escape, Lyra sticks Pan on her mother's demon, on the golden monkey. Pan turns into, I think it's a Wolverine. And at first it does clearly hurt her, but then she starts standing up and just kind of blocking through the pain, which is something I seriously doubt anyone has ever done before. And you realize that Mrs. Coulter has found a way to truly separate her humanity and her soul to get what she wants. She is able to block out what her soul is going through, and that's terrifying.
It wasn't that utterly demonstrative when she's also able to back the specters down. Like I think she talked about that. She was like, "Yeah, I was able to separate myself from my humanity, and when they sensed no humanity, they went away." I'm like, oh, okay then.
How do you separate yourself from your humanity? I don't even get how that's possible.
Well, I believe it starts with getting your father's inheritance, and then you buy real estate. These are Trump jokes, everybody. Get it?
Thank you for that.
Funny stuff. Ha ha. Hey, it's good to have a sense of humor. Anyway.
Yeah, the fact that she's kicking around her freaking demon, whereas we've seen Pan and all the others have acted as spiritual guides.
Well, here's what I'll tell you. It's sociopathy, isn't it? I mean, I don't know how much you know about mental illness and personality disorders and whatnot, but a lot of one of the inherent traits of personality disorder, and specifically like antisocial personality disorder, the traditional sociopathy, psychopath, that sort of thing, is an utter lack of remorse, utter lack of empathy for others. So you're saying, how can she do that if you inherently don't have it to begin with? It would not be a far cry then to detach yourself from humanity, if you get what I'm saying. And I think she's demonstrated through her actions in the first season. Let alone, she was killing kids. I mean, but in the name of science, I can't imagine she has a tremendous amount of empathy to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, it's established both in the first series and in the book that a person and their demon cannot be physically separated for a very long distance. There's one chapter I remember where Lyris has Pan turn into a bird or something, and he goes to scout ahead. And the chapter actually talks about how she can feel this. It's not like a sharp pain, but it's almost like she can feel part of her leaving the further he gets away, and how it's just destroying her inside. So we know that that's a case, and Mrs. Coulter is able to lock her demon in Lord Boreal's apartment when she decides to go to the college, because he's got a snake for a demon, so he's been able to hide his on his person at all times.
Every time that snake uncoils and falls out of his sleeve, I get shivers.
Ugh, tell me about it. But obviously she can't hide the freaking monkey. But yeah, the look on Boreal's face when she comes down.
Is that a monkey in your pants? Or are you just happy to see me? Shut up, you.
She didn't even want to take any chances like Lyra did with putting Pan in a backpack or something.
Right.
The monkey is not totally huge. She could have found a very stylish large bag to put him in. I'm sure Chanel makes those.
He could have had her on her back, and she could have looked like she had a hump.
But yeah, she locks him up, and the look on Boreal's face when she comes downstairs and he realizes she doesn't have her demon with her, he's like, what the hell? How did you do that?
Right. Yeah, she does ride that line. I mean, I compared her to Darth Vader, but like Darth Vader is this force of nature. He is costumed that way. His the voice of James Earl Jones adds presence and gravitas to it. Darth Vader was his larger than life presence. So when he is romping and stomping through Empire Strikes Back, on a single-minded quest to find Luke Skywalker and kill everyone that gets in his way, he's so big he fills up the screen. Whereas Miss Coulter, who has got that same single-mindedness and same evil, is so much more subtle about it. Whereas I think Darth Vader is a giant bat. She is a subtle knife. I like that, huh?
I'd also like that. I liked how they showed the subtle knife cutting through the dimensions. I was a little worried just because it's not that well explained in the book how it's cut, and when I just first read the description, I thought it was going to look something silly like swinging a pirate sword, and all of a sudden there's a rip in the screen, and now there's another blue screen behind it or something like that. You know what I'm talking about?
I have to say, HBO doesn't do a tremendous amount of science fiction. I mean, I think they do maybe one or two shows a year, if that. They do. I don't watch it, but they do Westworld, which is partially sci-fi. They did Game of Thrones.
Incredible CGI on that, though, when they actually show the part people, part robots. It looks real as hell.
Game of Thrones, Rome, which only lasted 2 seasons because it was so I think like the budget on Rome when that was the thing for the 2 seasons that it was also an ornate built sets, like the Crown, that sort of thing. So the point that I'm getting to is when HBO decides they're going all in on a series, no expense is spared. They 9 out of 10, if not 10 out of 10, HBO series where you have ornate sets, that's what I was looking for, where you have ornate sets, look gorgeous. I can't think of like an HBO series where you were in a fantasy world of some sort, whether it be science or or traditional or historical, and it looked terrible.
Well, I mean, I like how the use of the knife, you can find little like lines in the world. The knife can connect to those, and I really love the scene where they've realized that the worlds kind of match up. It's not just random slash. Okay, I'm portal gun. I'm where I need to be. There is a science and a math to getting the placement of the portals right. And there's a really great scene where they're looking through the portal and the camera pans left to right and back, showing the world inside the portal and how it lines up against the world that they're in right now. And that shot was gorgeous.
Yeah, it all looks very good. Anything else about Lyra and Will? Because if not, I want to talk about Lee Scorsby.
I think if I can think of anything, I'll get back to it. But yeah, let's move on to why did they have to kill off Lin-Manuel Miranda? I love Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Does he not die in the book? Or did you not get to that page?
I didn't get to that far into the second book, but yes, he dies in the book.
All right, your homework assignment for 2021, Lily, is to finish reading the Golden Compass trilogy. Wait, you're Alexis, not Lily. But this is the fight that I'm having. Trying to get you women to finish these fantasy novels that you're reading.
Are you done?
Not quite.
No, his character does die, and they gave him an absolutely amazing death scene when he's talking to Hester. You're holding back the tears as they're talking to each other, as they both know they're dying.
I hadn't read the books, because books are for burning, but this is the guy who just yelled at you for not finishing the book.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like, excuse me?
Do as I say, not as I do.
Class A hypocrite out of you.
Yeah. I was really shocked they killed that character. I was like, wow. And it was very sad. And and I really, I don't have any special, my daughter loves the shit out of Hamilton. And, I think, for a while there, before she turned a page and became obsessed with anime, she was obsessed with Hamilton. That was all I heard coming out of her mouth. And it was all we heard in the house. Like every time she was listening to music, she was listening to Hamilton.
Well, in all fairness, to know Hamilton is to love Hamilton. We've gone back and forth on things. It's like that some people have different opinions on. I have yet to meet anyone, and certain people that we both know will be excluded from this, who don't like Hamilton.
I can't say I don't like it. I haven't sat through it. I'm not interested. What I've heard seems perfectly capable and perfectly fine. It's just, it's weird because I have such a love of of musicals and Broadway and whatever. I think I mentally can't get over the hump of, we have rapping people from the 1700s. Like, all right, sure.
Well, fair enough if that's your thing. No, I absolutely adore Hamilton. I love the music. I was just thinking about it earlier, how I actually haven't watched it in ages, and I love the songs so much.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember the first time I dropped a Hamilton joke on the show, and you didn't even respond. I'm like, oh, come
on! But Lin-Manuel, I have to say, has, shit tons of charisma. And I think he plays Lee Scorsby very well. And this season, you got to see him paired up with who plays John Perry, who is Will's father?
I need to double check, but I believe his name is Andrew Scott. And it threw me for a loop seeing him like that, because this is the guy who played Moriarty in Benedict Cumberbatch's Sherlock series. I have only seen him as a villain. So to see him suddenly being, a good guy was like, holy crap. It's so... It would be like seeing the guy who played Joffrey or Ramsay Bolton from Game of Thrones suddenly, playing a superhero. It's like, nope, you're going to have to give me a little time to, reset my mental image of you.
Yeah, so it's Amir Wilson. I believe I have that right. Whoops. Yeah.
Andrew Scott, I was right. Amir Wilson plays Will. Andrew Scott plays his dad.
Yeah. Yes. I'm looking at the wrong list here. You're right. Will Perry. God damn it. Here we go. Andrew Scott is Colonel John Perry. Oof. Hey, look, there's a picture. So, yeah. So, through most of Season 2, once they finally catch up with one another, Lee Scorsby's on a mission. This is it's very, very Chapter 2 of any fantasy I've ever read. Everyone's on a goddamn mission. The Fellowship has broken up and gone in different directions. Everyone's on a mission. Everyone's got something going on. So Lee Scorsby's thing is he's looking for protection for Lyra. He has come to love that little girl, and he wants to make sure she's going to be safe wherever she may roam. And he is told seek out this person, which he does. Seek out the shaman, which he does, and it turns out the shaman is Will's father. And so a lot of the rest of Season 2, once they meet up with one another, is them forming a relationship and getting to know one another and hanging out and dealing and going on an adventure. The church is chasing them, etc., etc. And it ends with Lee Scorsby taking fire for John so that John can escape and get to Will and ultimately get to Lyra. None of that works out the way that he intends, but that is what the goal is. And I rather enjoyed, first of all, like I said, Lin-Manuel, I think, is a great actor. I think he does a hell of a job with the part, and I enjoyed his chemistry with Andrew Scott.
Every time I watch him, I just look and go, and this is the guy they got to voice Gizmo Duck, and he is good in all of these roles. Holy crap.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what other project he takes on as life unfolds. He's really good, and I would say their stuff together, I think more so than most of the other stuff from Series 2, I really enjoyed. Like, I would look forward to their scenes together.
Absolutely. But no, the scenes were really good. It's still a little weird how John Perry was able to become a shaman and suddenly has control over storms and nature and stuff. But I think at that point I was just sort of willing to, just kind of wash my hands of the affair and say, wizard did it.
Yep. He became a wizard. I'm good with this. And I thought that he gave this line delivery where everything feels like he has a migraine. Like, he would whisper, and his head would kind of bob and look down, and he always looked like his head hurt him. And I thought that would get on my nerves, but I kind of enjoyed it, especially when he would do that and then do something heroic, like create a storm so they could get away from the church. Mm-hmm. That was all fun stuff. Lee Scorsby's death, as he's telling John to make a run for it, was really, really sad. He went out like a hero, and I kept waiting for him to get saved. Saved by the witches, saved by somebody. Like, nope, he just dies. He sacrificed himself, and it's one of those where you have to have stakes, and you're going to have to lose some of your characters in your fantasy, and that was the Boromir moment.
Pretty much.
Anything else of the church bombing of the witches was particularly horrifying to watch. Kind of reminded me of the stuff they talked about at the beginning of the Watchmen show, where the riots in Oklahoma and then the bombing by the government of the that area, especially the way that they did it, because they were using those huge barrels to do it. I was like, oh wow, that's evocative of the Oklahoma bombing, that sort of thing. So the ending here, again, very Empire Strikes Back. Everyone's lost everything, and things are looking their darkest.
One of the other things I liked, I was going to say earlier, was some of the writing with the Cardinals. This may sound weird, but we were talking earlier about how we see the first Cardinal die, and McPhail, who we have seen with Mrs. Coulter, getting power is appointed as Cardinal in his place. We saw earlier when the first Cardinal, they were saying, there's a hole in the sky, and he's going, heresy, heresy, and they're like, it's not heresy, it's there. We get a really great scene where McPhail asks one of his associates, who has an alethiometer of his own, to figure out what's going on. And he comes in and he goes, well, what I'm going to say sounds pretty like heresy. And he's so scared that McPhail's going to come after him. McPhail's going, you are repeating what was said. You are not coming up with these thoughts. It's not heresy if you're just repeating it. And I really like that, because it's him trying to essentially say, I'm not like the previous Cardinal. I'm not going to throw a bitch fit for you just relaying the mess. It's like, I'm not going to shoot the messenger.
Yeah.
Now tell me what you heard. Tell me what your alethiometer said. I thought that was really good writing.
Yeah, there's not a lot of it's a very underwhelming is not the right word. It's not particularly overly dramatic, this series.
It's very subtle.
Yeah, I didn't want to use the word subtle again, but it is. It's a very subtle series. I think we're so used to, especially with Game of Thrones being not that long ago, and then we keep referencing Lord of the Rings and some of these other things that are very, have a high quality, high drama to them. And then this is a fantasy series where the first season had a talking polar bear. It's not Rock'em Sock'em. This is a thinker's fantasy story.
Very much.
So this ends with Miss Coulter finally catches up with Lyra, and she knocks her out, and we find Lyra in possession of possessed by Miss Coulter and stuffed in a box for safekeeping. That's the way you parent a child. Shove them in a box.
Yeah, that's actually pretty creepy. It's like she knocks her daughter out and locks her in a trunk.
Hey, you get in the box. So there's that. Will catches up with his father. His father ends up being killed in his arms, and Will makes a run for it, and he's separated from Lyra and on his own, and not quite sure what to do next. I don't think there's anything more to Will's story, is there?
It was kind of satisfying seeing him take his father's coat and put the hood on.
Yeah.
That was a very touching scene. He's also kind of in trouble, because not only is Lyra gone, Serafina has taken off to answer Lee's call, and unfortunately she got there 2 minutes too late. And the other witches who were with them were attacked and eaten by the specters.
Right.
So he's probably going to come back to that hill and be like, okay, witch with no soul, Lyra's gone. Now what? And
then in our final ta-da moment, we finally catch up with the one scene in the entire series 2 that they got James McAvoy for. He is, and what the hell were these lava creature things?
Angels.
Okay. He has gone to confront the angels. This is right out of Lord of the Rings. This is Aragorn going to the cave of the damned and saying, "Hey, will you fight for me or not, you pieces of shit ghosts?" And they're like, "Well, no, we'd prefer not to." And he's going, "You do, and you'll be free, because I'm the king." And so they go and they fight for him, and that's the third book, but it doesn't matter, or at least the third movie. Similar premise here. James McAvoy's like, "Look, we need to take the church out. Are you with me, angels, or aren't you?" And the angels go, "We're with you, James McAvoy." Roll credits.
Then we also find out more about the prophecy and why the witches were so determined to protect Lyra. It turns out that there's a prophecy that states Lyra is going to be the next Eve, and there will be man will fall a second time, and Lyra will be the mother of all after the fall of man.
Terrific. So overall, Let me give my thoughts here, and then I'll give you the final word. It's. I didn't dislike it. I really enjoyed it once it picked up. From episode 4 to episode 7, and it's not a whole lot there. It got really good. It got really interesting. I think that's the thing between pacing and it just being too slow in the beginning. I was like, this. It was started off as kind of a chore to watch, and then it shifted gears, and I'm like, oh, I'm into what's happening here. You really do, and that's why I made the statement before, like, it's a thinker's fantasy series, because, like, I just finished watching The Boys, and, The Boys, people's heads are exploding in every other episode, or every other scene. There's so much stuff going on, so much violence. If you watch Game of Thrones, you were 5 minutes away from someone being naked, or being thrown out a window, or being stabbed, or whatever. With this, you just don't get anything like that. You get a lot of conversation. You get a lot of acting. You get a lot of drama. You don't get a tremendous amount of fantasy elements. The fantasy elements are woven into the thematic presentation. This is a story about religion and its uses and its conflicts and science and its conflicts with religion and can these two things coexist and that sort of thing, which can make for great television and at times does. But if you're looking for rock'em sock'em, dragons and whatnot, this is not going to be your series. So I like that we're doing it. I like that we're talking about it because I think we need to look at some higher art in the world of television. But I can see why people are like, no thanks. When you say fantasy, I want dragons, and there ain't no dragons in this show.
Yeah, unfortunately, I know a lot of people probably got really wound up by the first series. I mean, there's no fighting polar bears in this one. Sorry, guys. And I can think of a few times they probably could have done maybe a little bit more action, but at the same time, I'm not the kind of person that's, says we need to Michael Bay up this script, otherwise we're going to lose the lower common denominator. So this is the Thinking Man series, without question. All the acting was really well done. It is a little slow. There is a lot they got to set up, and there's so much they have to establish, especially with this new world that they're in, the Sidigazi, I think is how the kids pronounce it. And the angels and the knife and the specters, and it probably was a little bit easier to have it flow better in the book than it would in a series. It's kind of like the whole joke they talk about with the first Thor movie. It's like, well, we have a lot of crap we have to set up, or none of this is going to make any sense.
Here's my one final thing I want to pitch. I want to throw out to you and see what you think. What possessed this man to write this for children? Like, my 10-year-old daughter is reading Harry Potter, and not that she's, like, struggling with it, but, it is a bit of a dense read to get through, and as the books go on, they become giant tombs. But you're also talking about projection. You as a 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old can project yourself into this story, and it is what fantasy tends to be for children. Harry Potter is great for kids because it's a kid's power fantasy, and there's magic, and there's magical creatures, and there's a clearly defined bad guy and a clearly defined hero going on Joe Campbell's journey and all of that. And so, like, I get the attraction to Harry Potter. Who the fuck thought this was a good idea for kids? Like, what kid is debating the merits of organized religion, and science and all of that? Like, I don't understand. Like, again, having not read the book, I don't know how fair I'm being, but just thematically, I'm like, what? Why would this be interesting for children? How was this a hit?
Maybe because the writer wanted to make sure that the kids were able to think for themselves before they got too indoctrinated into the church. I don't know.
I mean, like, okay, I accept that as a premise for why he wrote it for them. I don't understand how this became popular. Like, what kids were reading this and going, you know what? Yes, I project myself into this story, and I question the church I was brought up in. Huh?
Well, it doesn't help that, let's face it, the controversy and the church complaining only added to the Streisand effect.
You're going to need to explain that to me. What happened?
Oh, the Streisand effect?
No, what people complained about the book?
Oh, religious officials were furious that this book was essentially promoting atheism. I mean, yeah, there is no doubt about this. You know, we find out in the second series, in the second book, Lord Asriel says, I'm going to go fight the authority. Well, you know what the authority is. The authority isn't the church. The authority is God.
So did that actually result in people, in kids, and I don't want to focus on the kids here because, you know, adults, whatever. But did that actually result in more kids reading this book, or was this a function of the schools adopting it and forcing it on kids?
I have absolutely no idea.
Okay. I didn't know if there was something you heard about that or not.
No, I honestly was intrigued because I saw it on a bestseller list. People said it was interesting. And then, yeah, there was the controversy that hit, and I thought, oh, this is, you know, could be kind of, you know, intriguing. And, yeah, I remember reading the first book when I was in high school, and then I got partway through the second book, and then something happened, and I put the book down, and I didn't go back.
Gotcha. It'd be, between the two of us, I'd be curious to kind of see, you know, if there's anything written about what all, when the church started condemning it, what all that resulted in, if anything. I'd be fascinated to know. But yeah, I can, like I said, you know, Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, as dense a tomb as that is, and The Hobbit, I can see, you know, kids, especially of my dad's generation, projecting themselves into the newer version of that, Harry Potter. I can see people projecting themselves into that. It's hard. I don't know. It's hard for me to see little girls and little boys seeing themselves as Lyra and Will in this, you know, and you know what the draw is for them.
Having cute little animals by your side all the time?
That's as good an answer as any. I think that's a great place to stop the podcast. All right, so we'll be back whenever it's been obviously renewed for Series 3, and Series 3 is going to conclude. Is going to be based on the third book. What is the name of the third book? Do you remember?
The Amber Spyglass, I believe.
So I believe Series 3 is the Amber Spyglass. I think they bumped it back up to 8 episodes again to conclude the thing, or maybe they'll pull a WandaVision and add 9 episodes to it.
Oh, they'll just that to screw with your schedule again.
Yeah, probably. So when it does, Alexis and I will be back to finish this off and review the series for you. All right? How's that sound?
Asking me, or are you asking the audience?
Whoever decides to answer me first.
Because I think it sounds great. The audience is probably going, oh, God, we got to listen to these people again.
All right. In the meantime, in between time, what do you got going on over in your store?
Well, Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic. As I mentioned multiple times this week, we're not sure when we're going to be back on the road for the convention circuit. We're waiting to hear about which shows have decided they're going to continue on. We're hearing word of some shows that are interested in continuing, but they are probably going to be pushing their events further into the year. So I'm going to take a wild guess and say that the remaining of my winter and at least the first half of spring is going to be pretty quiet. But we will still have our stores open. In fact, we're going to be putting a ton of new merchandise on the Etsy and Handmade at Amazon shop. I am just waiting for the sun to come back out because I always take my pictures with natural light. And this is January in Kansas City, Missouri. Sun? What sun? There's no sun. As always, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Under Duress Twitter. Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic.
So, this is not her first rodeo this week. Alexis joined me at the start of the week, our first podcast of the new year, as it were, that wasn't a boxing watch-along. We reviewed Red Sonja and Vampirella. Whoa, Vampirella. And Meet Betty and Veronica, the first 6 issues of that series out of 12. Or if you're collecting the trades, the first trade. That was a lot of fun. And then we got back together again, slightly less intellectual, but certainly more fun. We looked at the first part of the first season of The Wonderful World of Mickey Mouse, which debuted on Disney Plus, a series of 8-minute shorts.
And Mark said he doesn't like Mickey to be creepy.
No. You were in agreement with that. Don't hold me out there all by myself.
I forgot forgot to ask. You did watch the shorts that weren't part of the Wonderful World of Mickey Mouse, but were still done in anime in the same style. The ones that came out on YouTube and are currently on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I complained about it. I said I'd seen some of these, and I didn't like the animation. I didn't like the way it was being done, so I stopped watching them.
Did you see the one with Goofy as a zombie?
Probably. I'm sure. And I'm sure I've tried to block it out of my mind.
Well, it's better than Street Gum.
Hey,
I'm sorry. Anytime you complain, I'm just going to say, like, could be worse.
This Saturday, myself and the Podsman will review the first NXT special, New Year's Evil, and we will look at last week's Brody Lee Celebration of Life from AEW, the show that was dedicated to the late Brody Lee, who passed away at the end of December, rather suddenly. Next week, we will be, myself and Christian will be doing The Boys, Volume 2, Get Some, issues 7 through 14. And then myself and... Okay, I have you listed for The Boys Season 2. Did I mess up?
I saw Boys Season 2, and if you need me to talk about it, I can. But you might want to go on the network chat and see if somebody else had volunteered for this first.
Oh, I have, on my list I have Jesse, and in my notes I have you and Winfrey for some odd reason. So let's try that again. Pretty sure it's Jesse, who will be joining me to talk The Boys Season 2.
Yeah, you've got me for Mandalorian and the 2 Sabrina podcasts for the rest of the month.
Right, that's what I thought. What the hell did I do here?
Yeah, again, it's like I've seen The Boys too, and I will happily talk about the scene where Carl Urban picked up a baby with laser eyes and used it as a weapon, because I fell off the couch losing my damn mind, laughing so hard that Andre came downstairs from his office and was just like, what the hell has happened to you?
Yeah. Myself and Patrick Mullen will be getting into the next chapter of our history of heavyweight boxing, looking at the Hall of Famer George Foreman. And then myself, Sean Comer, and Cole Marentet will be reviewing the next chapter in the Transformers War for Cybertron. Also, myself and Chris Bailey will be reviewing both nights of AEW New Year's Smash. So that's what's going on in the wonderful world of the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. For Alexis, Hejna, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.